Coming up.
We crave other people and we crave understanding. We weren't meant to be isolated and alone. And I think that that's what nonprofits can bring. I think that's what this book can bring. I think that's what social media can bring, and all of these different things. If we use it correctly, obviously, I think social media can also be isolating, but no matter what, when we're authentic, that's when community can be built.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. A couple of years ago, I went through one of the toughest health episodes of my life. I found myself in a really, really dark place, and honestly, it felt like the world was caving in all around me. I didn't know where to turn or what to do. I knew I needed something, but it just seemed like nothing was working. In therapy didn't work for me in the past. But then, with the encouragement of my wife, I decided to give today's sponsor BetterHelp a try, even though I was a little skeptical at first. And let me say, it was so different. I connected with a therapist, and simply talking with her helped me lower my anxiety in ways I didn't expect. Sometimes it's just about having someone outside of your family to listen, and BetterHelp made that so easy. What I love most about BetterHelp is the flexibility. You don't have to commit to months of sessions if that's not what you need. Sometimes a few sessions are all it takes to get some relief, to take the edge off, and start feeling a little better. Plus, they have a wide selection of therapists. You can find someone you really click with, and if you don't, you can switch therapists anytime and no extra cost. If you're like me, someone who gets stuck in their head a lot, BetterHelp might be the answer. And right now, if you visit betterhelp.com/sold-separately or use the link in this video's description, you can get 10% off your first month. So give it a try. Remember, you can't take care of anyone else in your life until you take care of yourself.
Auto sequence start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And now, on with the show.
My name is Caroline Wienecke, and my happiness is spending time with my son and the people closest to me.
Okay, hello, Caroline Wienecke. How are you today?
I'm good, Jason. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you. Thank you so much for jumping on, too. I really appreciate you doing the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You know, you're pretty amazing. I've been reading up a little bit on your background and what you do, and you've taken on so many roles, but you've written none more important than being a mom, right?
Yeah, that's my most important and favorite job.
Things change, don't they, when you become a parent?
Yes, absolutely.
So tell me about, do you have a little boy, little girl?
A little boy, yeah. He just turned 7.
Oh, that's a great age too. It's so much fun.
Yeah, they start becoming a real person and you're more hanging out with them versus parenting them as much.
Yeah, it's so amazing too to see what they come up with and what kind of questions they have.
And they know things that you don't now, which is crazy.
Right? Isn't that crazy? How does that happen?
I have no idea. My goodness.
So you've started a company for a 4C advisory group, right?
Yep.
And you guys advise nonprofits in something I think is really super important: communication and relationships. You've even given a TEDx talk on that subject, which is really insightful. I got to see that. I really loved it. You did a really good job with that. Why is it so imperative, do you think, for these nonprofits to communicate well and to reach out and build these relationships?
Well, so I've been in philanthropy for almost a decade now, and I've seen the greatest impact through word of mouth and through relationships. Even in my own career and own company, the greatest impact is through building relationships. And my TED Talk specifically highlighted the community's role in building those relationships. And it highlighted how, though a nonprofit and a for-profit are different, they're still businesses. And the way that they're run differently is primarily their operational budget. And then the purpose of a nonprofit is to support others, not to make profit. And so where a lot of that money goes, where for-profit would usually have, is marketing and brand awareness. And there's so many nonprofits in the United States that so many people don't know where they are, what they're doing. And so it's so important for the people in the community to share, and not only to those who can give financially and volunteer their time and their skills, but for people that need the resources. I myself have been in need many times and not known where to go, except for someone who told me about the nonprofits that existed.
It's a great point, because I think even if you're not, if nonprofits are not bringing in revenue, it still needs to be run like a business, right? It still needs to have that same structure. Do you think a lot of nonprofits forget that important point, or see themselves in a different light?
Yeah. I mean, there's all different kinds of people that start nonprofits. And I would say the majority are very passionate individuals that see a problem and want to make a genuine impact and change that issue. And so to have the most impact, you need to have people making change and people supporting, whether it's providing services, whether it's providing things to individuals, and then ultimately growing big enough to provide shelter or classes or vocational training. Whatever that is, it needs to have structure, just like starting any business has structure. It needs to have staff, just like any business has staff. And it needs to run. And the bigger it gets, the more operational costs it has, like needing HR and needing staffing. And depending on the type of work that they're doing, working with like HIPAA violations, and they're now you bring lawyers in. And so it's not just as simple as, oh, I'm passing out sandwiches on the side of the road or to homeless people. It really is standard of care to individuals. And then the difference in breakdown between a for-profit and a nonprofit is simply what the purpose of the mission is. It's not to make profit, it's to help others.
And that goes along too, I think, with having their voice really ideally put out. Do you think that a lot of nonprofits struggle with trying to find and express that voice and have their clear mission?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, generally one individual starts a nonprofit organization and gets their 501c3 and cultivates a board and gets some advice and starts out their mission. So this one individual now has to figure out how to build the business, have a business strategy, figure out what their mission is, how they can accomplish their mission well, how they can bring in funds, whether that's through grants or through corporate funding or through individuals, and then build relationships in the community to get the word out about what they're doing. So they have to be an expert in marketing and building the business and all of these different things. And generally it's people that have, people that are starting nonprofit aren't doing it to make money. They're doing it to make a difference. And so needing all of those different skills is challenging, especially in the beginning. And so you need funds to bring in professionals that can help you, just like any individual business owner needs.
And how should, I guess, nonprofits, if they are struggling with this, what's the best way they can get help or help themselves? Should they utilize things like LinkedIn and build their relationships that way? Should they just do more outreach, boots on the ground type thing? I mean, it is all about relationships, right? And connection.
Yeah. Like think about a lot of the businesses that have like a business development department. Like that whole department is just going out there and building relationships to ultimately get business, right? Nonprofits have to do the same thing for fundraising. You're building relationships for that individual donation for that annual fund. You're building relationships with individuals to get a donation, to get them to come back to, and you can do that all different ways. You can have an event, you can reach out through LinkedIn, but it's still that relationship management, this ambiguous piece of reaching out and continuing to bring people in and then have them reach out to their networks and engaging a very busy community with their own lives. So that's where, yes, it's a lot of the nonprofit's responsibility, obviously, but then that's where we play a role in the community to do that extra leap and that extra work to bring our networks into the nonprofits that we know about and really focus on philanthropy, especially younger generations, and what that looks like and what $10 can do, because we don't often think, oh, my $10 isn't going to do much and I'm not at the place financially to give $1,000 to a nonprofit. So I just can't be philanthropic. But $10 from 100 people makes a huge impact. So all doing our part in whatever way we can, whether it's our time, talent, or treasure, or our network and sharing out.
So true. And I think, we work a lot in video production with nonprofits and then in corporate entities as well. But I feel like that nonprofits, they need to utilize things like that, like social media, video, because I think that video, especially, it just tells a great story and can really put a face on what you're trying to do. So I think they have to kind of think outside the box a little bit. And maybe traditionally, that's not how nonprofits were done in the past. But I think with technology and new ways to get out there, it goes back to that whole business idea. There's so many ways to market yourself now, especially with social media, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is also very challenging because I think we're inundated with a lot of different campaigns on social media. So how do we make it more fun and bring people in? Because no one is going to give just because they heard about something, or not many people are. They're going to give because they have a tie to that cause, whether it's something with cancer and they've had a family member go through cancer, or it's someone that they know is volunteering and they have a cause, or they get to see a video of an individual that's impacted and their heartstrings are pulled and they feel more engaged and more connected to the mission and the organization. It takes a village to do anything. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to start a business. It takes a village to help a village, So really coming together and helping people as we can.
That's so true. What if you are the single person who has started a nonprofit and maybe you don't have the funding to hire a staff, or you're trying to do it all on your own? In that case, would you suggest hitting social media hard and trying to just spread the word? I guess there are some things you can do alone.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the first thing that you need to do when you start a nonprofit is figure out what your mission is and create a business plan, and then get a board together. The beauty of board being a requirement for a 501c3 organization is you're required to have this network of advocates to, one, advise, but two, bring in their network. And your board should all be giving financially and be investing as well as you. So that's kind of where you start, and then you branch out from there. Yeah.
It's hard, I guess, any way you look at it. If you have a lot of people or you don't, it's like you said, there's so many voices out there and it's very crowded in the marketplace and in the nonprofit world. So, but it's just like anything, you have to just keep at it. I think consistency is key, and never quitting, always keep finding a way to go through. Wow. Switching gears just a little bit. I mean, you wrote your book, which is a fascinating title, Finding You. I love that title. You describe it as one of the most difficult things you've ever done. It's because it is a lot of, I think, self-expression and things you've been through. What does that book mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely changing hats a bit, because a lot of people, when I told them I'd written a book, my brand in the community is definitely nonprofit focused. And so they thought that it was a nonfiction, nonprofit work focused book. And it's not. It is a fictional story, but based off experiences I've had in my own life. And I never planned on writing a book. I used writing as a form of therapy for me after experiencing something traumatic. And as I had these words finally written out, I was able to share with really close people in my life finally what was going on with me. And I noticed it helping people. So I kind of formed it into this book and in this story. And I made the main character someone different, so people could put their stories into her and really relate with her. It was very hard because I didn't hold back in terms of the authenticity in the raw pieces of healing after trauma, of continuing to live, because it isn't just that something traumatic happens and it hurts and it's hard, but you also have to wake up the next day and still go to work and still be a friend and still be a parent, and things pop up and you can't sleep and you can't go to certain places because trauma has no logic to it. And healing is a long and slow process. But I wanted this book to kind of be, one, a place where people could relate to the really hard parts, the parts that we don't often want to admit out loud, that we're thinking, that we're going through, that we're feeling, but also be a cry that no matter what happens, speaking up and sharing what's going on with you is empowering and is strength. And suffering in silence is not is not something that we have to do.
Wow. I know that the theme of the book is about having resilience through those tough times and really kind of loving yourself through those times, right? Do you feel comfortable talking about where that came from in your own life? What stories that came about?
Yeah. I think the hardest part for me, and it's why I named the book Finding You, was because I saw myself really break down and change so drastically after this happened. And that was the part that I couldn't get past the most, that I had the most struggle with. I wanted to be my old self again and be who I was before this happened. And I couldn't. And I had a lot of guilt and shame and was frustrated at myself that I wasn't just better. And I think that the resilience piece comes in finding this new version of yourself, right? Finding parts of you that you used to be and finding parts of you that you didn't know you could become and finding the joy and beauty in that. We are often always made up of the things that have happened to us, but I think it's what we make out of it that really builds us to who we are today. And going through hard things doesn't mean that we are broken. It means that we have experienced something hard and changed because of it, and we're molded and fixed because of it. And if you've seen the cover of my book, there's puzzle pieces in it, because I think as we grow and change, the pieces that we need change as well. So really finding what fits in who we are and voicing that, and that being okay, and it not being taboo to be going through something hard.
Yeah, there's a stigma in there, right? I mean, there's some way we as humans feel like we're going to come across being weak if we share what we've been through or what we're going through. And it's so, I don't want to go so far as to say suffering is good, but you know what I mean? Suffering is a way where you do come in on the other end and you look back and you have definitely learned things, and I think, are a stronger person when you've gone through something traumatic like that.
Yeah, I've changed a lot in the past few years, definitely since I started writing the book. If you talked to me a little over a year ago, I would have said that I would never admit to ever going through anything hard. I think that suffering in silence was the biggest strength I had. I thought that talking about it or admitting that anything had happened to me, whether it was that traumatic event or anything else in my life, was shown as weakness. And I absolutely have broken through that and found strength in speaking, not only in speaking through my book and speaking out about what has happened to me, but also other experiences that I had. I think in my TED Talk, I talked about my experience being homeless and needing the help of nonprofits. And as someone that works in this industry and helps nonprofits now, like that was so taboo for me to ever admit. And it was just this thing that I hoped that no one would find out. And since speaking about it, it's been this thing that people are now connecting with me on, and it's actually helped people relate to me and see me as human, because we're all human. This facade of perfection doesn't exist. It just separates us from each other.
Yeah, so true. It does. I mean, I feel like, do you think social media has helped to get stories out, or do you think it's hurt in a way where if you put anything out there, people are going to jump on you and label you? Either you're weak or what have you gone through? I mean, I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like social media is maybe a necessary evil. I don't know. If you've got a nonprofit or a business, you kind of have to use it, but man, there's so much junk out there,
Yeah, no. And social media is something new for me that I've been dipping my toes into, and it terrifies me. Full transparency. I love the idea of the only things that people know about me are what I tell them, and I know who knows what. And I love that. I love that sense of control, right? And I also think that it can be detrimental to a sense, right? That where we've seen that evil, where we've seen comparing to each other, and not being authentic and trying to put out this front of perfection. So you want to be like me because I have everything together and I'm doing so well. And that's the part where it can be really detrimental to mental health. But the parts of it that are beautiful, that have connected us so deeply and so drastically, like my story can only go so far to the people around me, where podcasts and TikToks and Instagram can reach hundreds of thousands of people, and they can know about me and be impacted by my life and my story. And we can be more relatable the more authentic that we are. I think it's scary to be authentic.
Yeah.
And I think the internet is a place where nothing goes away, and we have to be really thoughtful and intentional on what we put on the internet. But I do think that it's a place where we can feel safe if we do it correctly.
I think authenticity is so important. I've built our company on that, and trying to find the real core of everyone that, we interact with. If we're telling their story, if we're doing the podcast, I really try to be as authentic as we can, because I feel like in this world today, there's so much that's not. And social media, we all know it's everybody's best life, if you like that term. It's no one puts anything on there usually that's like, oh, look, I had a horrible day today. It's just
right.
But you mentioned, and I heard it in the TED Talk about you being homeless at times. Was that one of the most difficult things from your past that helped in the writing of the book? Did you kind of focus back on that and pull from that time in your life?
Ironically, no, not on this book. I am writing another one. I'm definitely pulling from that part in my life. I think that section of my life was really just about survival mode. It was, I was 17, 18, so still really young. And definitely didn't. The first time that I ever experienced a trauma and talked about it pretty short after was this past experience and what I wrote my book about. So my experience with homelessness, I was very much, most people didn't know that I was homeless. I would go to school, I would go to work. If I didn't have a couch to crash on, then I would walk really far and take the long way so that I would get to school on time to be able to shower before class. And it's interesting, the things that you bring from those experiences. Like even today, walking is my coping mechanism. If I'm going through anything or it's hard, I go for a walk, not like a short walk, like a 15-mile walk. And it helps me. And so definitely I would say that period in my life was more the suffering in silence and more just putting my head down and getting through it. And every day, it wasn't about thinking about what was going on with me. It was about just doing the next thing to survive that day.
I think mental health, that's one thing about it. It's like we were speaking about with the stigma. It's like you don't, and I just keeps popping back in my head. There's, with dogs or with animals, they don't ever want to show the pack that they're hurting or that there's something wrong. So it's like, I think we have some of that mentality, especially the world can be a mean place at times. It's hard to find people who are going to really get you and understand what you're going through. Yeah. Sometimes it can come across as weakness. If you had told people at that time that you were homeless, it could have affected a job you're trying to get, or, you just never know. And that's a sad thing, but, it's difficult. It's difficult to get that courage to share your life with someone that you feel like you can trust and really, really lay it all on the table. So I think one lesson people from reading your book and need to take is that there is help out there. And I think there are good people there, good organizations to help you. And we need to get away from that fast food social media type thinking where it's a highlight reel. There are real people out there doing some incredible work.
Yeah. It's interesting thinking about mental health and going through challenging things. Like there's a difference between this elongated period of hard and like a isolated hard event. Your brain really protects you to survive something hard. So if it's long, you kind of just are, at least for me, it was more survival mode. There was no post-traumatic anything because I was in the traumatic. But once you live in this world of this post-traumatic stress and you have panic attacks and you are safe and logically there is nothing going wrong, but your body still is trying to protect you from this thing that you experienced once before. It's hard because it is so illogical. Like I know that in my home, I can go fall asleep and I am safe, but my body does not feel safe at home going to bed. So then what do I do? And I think in the book, it helped, especially because this was my own experience. I had people that helped me that I never expected. So it wasn't just opening up to the people closest to me. It was when I opened up to people, some of them, opening up is really hard and sharing is really hard. And I want to emphasize that because it absolutely did put me through the ringer. Growing and healing is not an easy thing at any point. But there were some people that, their reactions were shocking in negative ways. And there were some people, their reactions were shocking in ways I never expected them to be as much of a support as they were. And I really highlighted that in the book. There was someone that the main character met post the traumatic event that she ended up really forming a connection with. And it was outside of the people that she had known prior, to the family that she created, to the friends that she had. And so I think help comes when you open up in ways that you never expect and you never see coming. Just like forming relationships with anybody in any field, whether it's philanthropy or individual, any relationship that you get, you never know what is going to come out of it. But authenticity is the only thing that's going to bring us closer together, and being vulnerable, which is so hard because being vulnerable is so scary, but it's true.
It is really scary. But I think there's great strength in vulnerability, because I feel like not a lot of people do it, and it kind of sets you out. And if it's almost like if someone's going to be that vulnerable and put it all on the table and tell what's going on, I think that attracts people into your corner. I mean, it's a good thing once you get past that scary feeling of actually doing it and telling somebody. But we have to trust people. I think we're all very cautious. I think in this day and time, there's a lot you just don't know if people are going to take you, and you don't know what people are going to think. But we have to trust some people. So it's a good thing to kind of tell your story and get it out there. And a book is a great way to do it. Congratulations on that, because that's not an easy task to write a book.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did you, I'm sure that, cause writing a book, I'm sure has to feel like giving birth. It's like, once it's finished, you're like, oh, this is my baby.
Yeah.
You've gotten it out there. Was it difficult shopping it and getting it published?
I've always been I don't think I just do things kind of person. So as they were happening, I was like, holy crap. I wrote the book and I was like, you know what? I have so many of these stories written. Let me write an outline and see if I can turn this into a book. And so on all of my 14, 15-mile walks, that's what I did. And I wrote, and it took me about 3 months to write, which is very quick. But when I tell you, it's pretty much all I did during those 3 months. And then I big in networking. So every time I had a meeting, hi, do you know a fictional publisher? Hi, do you know a fictional publisher? And it didn't take that long for someone to meet with me, and I already had the book written. So I spoke with her. They wanted to publish it, kind of just went through those steps, went through those processes, and didn't really think about the fact that people were going to read it. So when it was finished and when I held it in my hands, it was the coolest thing in the entire world. And I was so excited. And then I started getting texts and emails and Facebook messages from old clients and old nonprofit partners and friends and family and people I hadn't spoken to in years that had read my book, people that I didn't know that had read my book. And it was like this super raw, vulnerable, like my soul was now in the world. And I did not think about the fact that people were actually going to read it. And two things, it was super awesome because, like you said, it takes one person being vulnerable to bring other people in. And I feel honored to have gotten the opportunity to hear other people's stories from sharing my own. And, there were a lot of people that have had a really hard time reading it because they knew me. And I absolutely understand that. So as much as I'm happy that it's in the world and helping people, I understand everyone that struggles with it. Even people that aren't as close to me anymore still have known me. They're like, wow, I had no idea. That's tough.
That's the ultimate vulnerability, isn't it? I mean, writing a book and sharing your life with whoever picks it up, have you heard from a lot of readers? Let's say people that don't know you, have they really, I can imagine they've gotten a lot of comfort from it, because anytime you read about someone who's gone through something you have, there's a comfort there.
Yeah. I think that though So I've read it hundreds of times, but even now when I reread it and I kind of think about it in the perspective of someone new reading it or someone that doesn't know me reading it, I read all of those parts where I was very raw and very honest, that are just like, oh, why did I write that for the world to hear? And those are the parts that people, when they reach out to me, even if they don't know me, have said, I've thought that, I felt that. And I thought that, thinking that was wrong. I thought that, that I was healing incorrectly. I was thinking incorrectly. And so having this community in a topic where it's very isolating, I think is the coolest part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it has to go back too with what we were talking about nonprofits. I think there's something, if you kind of link that together, when people read something that resonates with them and gets them excited to get involved, I think that's the same kind of thing with nonprofits, I believe. If the messaging is clear and you're trying to tell these stories through the nonprofit, I think that's the best way to get people under the tent, and want to give, want to help, getting involved. I don't know it's just a natural human instinct that we have when we read something or hear something that someone's gone through. We our heart goes out to them, but if we've gone through it as well, we have that instant connection,
Yeah, we all crave community. Like, we crave other people and we crave understanding. We weren't meant to be isolated and alone. And I think that that's what nonprofits can bring. I think that's what this book can bring. I think that's what social media can bring, and all of these different things. If we use it correctly, obviously, I think social media can also be isolating, but no matter what, when we're authentic, that's when community can be built.
Is that something you try to teach nonprofits to be authentic and to really don't worry about what everybody else is doing? Just be true to yourselves and what you're trying to do? Absolutely.
And even with conversations with donors, like, don't act like you have it all together, because we don't have it all together, right? Where your goal is to help other people. We're never going to be perfect in what we're doing, right? So, like, talk about your struggles as well as talking about your successes. And then in that, people might have solutions to your struggles, because we all have a different skill set. We all have a different area of expertise. We were not all ever meant to be perfect at everything. So coming together to have that shared end goal can only work through authenticity. If you're, everything's perfect, I'm perfect, everything's great, nobody's going to think that you need them,
Yeah, you don't need any more money. They've got it all together. They're doing rock and roll, and they don't need it. Going back to the time when you were homeless, did you have an organization or someone that reached out to you, or what was that turning point for you? Did you tell someone your story finally and become vulnerable, or?
Yeah, for me, I had some individual help. That was also a time where I had just graduated high school and I had yet to get my apartment, and I got pregnant with my son. So Pregnancy Resource Center was a place for me that helped me figure out. It was amazing, because, you think about what Pregnancy Resource Center does and you think, okay, it's just one-sided. They help with pregnancy, right? And all things considered there. But they set me up with a counselor that connected me to other nonprofits and organizations and advised me on how to, get my first apartment, and advised me on all these things I was trying to figure out how to teach myself. And as a teenager, new adult, whatever you wanted to call it, it's really hard to teach yourself everything. It's pretty much impossible. You're going to learn from your mistakes over and over again. So to get that advice and to get those connections was huge. Something that people aren't talking about enough, I don't think, is that a lot of nonprofits work together and they share with the people they serve to provide and make sure that if they don't cover what your needs are, you are referred to another nonprofit that can cover those needs. So once I got integrated in the nonprofit world, which I really knew nothing about, it was very easy to get to learn about all the other nonprofits around.
And I'm guessing you did or didn't have a lot of family support during that time?
No, not at that time.
And I think that there's a lot of people out there like that for whatever reason, that they don't have family around them, because people always jump to that. Well, ask your family for help, or blah, blah. It's people don't always, it's not always a black and white issue. And if you can't or don't have support like that, or can't go to your family, then you got to have somewhere else. And that's where that help comes in. It's so important.
Yeah. Every single person in this world has gone through hard things. It's just where they've received their village, their help through it. And like you said, not everyone has a network. Not everyone has a family. I had not yet built my network of, right now I have an amazing network of friends that I consider my family. And I had not yet built that at the time. So I needed this network of help elsewhere. And not everyone, has their network in their village yet. And the beauty of nonprofits is it's almost like a built-in village to support you until you can have that foundation under your feet and start cultivating your own.
Yeah. And family doesn't have to be blood, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it can be anybody that supports you and loves you. So I think people need to realize that if you don't have or can't go to your family, you can also find a group of people to surround you that support you and care about you and would do anything for you. So if anyone's watching or listening to this that thinks they can't get any help because of that, you can. There are people out there who will love you.
Yeah.
And organizations that I'm sure you've met them. There's some great people in organizations that's all they want to do is help people.
Yeah. It's hard when you're in survival mode to cultivate and build relationships,
to
form that family. So getting out of survival mode, I would say, is the first step. And then you can kind of build your village, and nonprofits are a perfect place to start with that. Whether you're homeless and need to figure out how to find a place to sleep or how to get food. I learned a lot about how government help could have helped me at the time, which I didn't know, that Medicaid existed and that WIC existed and food stamps existed. I had no idea. And then I got to the point where I didn't need them. So really there is the system in place. And once I was out of survival mode, then it was, okay, now how can I turn this into being able to thrive in my career, in my life, in raising my family, and forming a family of my own and getting those relationships and creating my own village and focusing on that. There's always space for growth, but it's really making sure that you can get your feet underneath you first.
Yeah. Yeah. To heal, you really have to stop the bleeding first, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow, Caroline, you're a very inspirational and amazing person. Thank you. I just can't thank you enough for spending time with me. Your story's great. The book, everything you're doing, just keep it up because you're doing some great things.
Thank you so much, Jason.
And where can people, if they want to get in touch with you or learn more about the nonprofit, where can people find you online?
Yeah. So CarolineWienecke.com is where I have my book and then my TED Talk and all the other podcasts and places I've been speaking. And if you want me to speak, I can connect with me on there. 4cadvisorygroup.com is anything nonprofit related and my consulting company there. And then my social media is Caroline Wienecke 11 for everything, or Caroline Wienecke Writes.
Perfect. And does the nonprofit work? I mean, the advisory company work with nonprofits all over or just in a certain area?
All over. Yep.
Right. And the book is wherever you shop for books? You can find it anywhere?
It's on Amazon as well as on my website. Physical copies on my website. You can download it to your Kindle on Amazon. And then the audiobook is in the works as well.
Great. Good job. And you've got another one you said's coming along.
Yes. I learned that writing is like my favorite thing in the entire world. So yeah,
awesome.
I can't stop.
That's great. All right, my friend. Well, take care and thank you so much. Please come back when you have some time and we'll talk about all this stuff some more and see what else you're up to.
I would love that. Thank you so much, Jason.
Happiness Sold Separately is created and hosted by Jason Hensley and is produced by Makash Films. Narration by Lauren Gobis. If you or someone you know is in crisis and needs immediate help, call the National Mental Health Hotline at 866-903-3787. We would be honored if you would rate, share, and subscribe.
Aye, that's a good one.